guys, it's the Addy Queen, and I am just trying to fix my camera. In this video, I'm going to be going over my neck gaiter cowl pattern and just sort of making it live. That way, if you guys have any questions, you can ask. I will be using this Big Twist classic yarn. It's originally in a skein, but I used most of the skein, so I caked it. And to start this, we're going to go to peg number 23 because that is right in the middle. And we want one peg on each side. So I'm going to go in front of 22, behind 23, in front of 24. And then I'm going to stick my yarn in my feeder. And we're just going to plain knit those 3 stitches. But every time we get to the edge, we are going to increase by 1. So every single edge we are increasing. And this is how I achieved the triangle shape at the bottom of my cowl. We're just increasing by 1 every single time. Hey Jack Hogs, it's nice to see you on the stream. So, as you'll notice, this is actually done in plain knitting, but I have my machine on the circular knitting mode. So it is possible to plain knit while you're in circular mode. The only thing that plain knitting mode does is it stops your knitting at the black needle. The black needles, I'm sorry. But you can plain knit in circular mode. So I'm just going to keep increasing like this until I've made it almost all the way around the loom. And if you haven't noticed, my Addy is running a lot smoother. I actually received my new handle. I took my Addy apart, put it back together. I did lose a screw though, so things are not as tight as they should be. I ordered some screws to kind of fill in where I lost one. Oh, that didn't sound very good. So we're going to continue increasing. And as you'll notice, I don't really have a row count for this part just because it doesn't trigger the row counter. So as long as you're consistent with what you're doing, it doesn't matter what your row counter says. Like mine says 74 right now. So we're kind of going off of our increases to see how far we are. And as I get further along, you'll notice that the black needles will not be like where I start and finish. That's just because of the way they lay with the number of pegs, just because there are pegs 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to continue with my increase here. It's very important when you're plain knitting to make sure your yarn goes over this red hump on the last peg, because that is what helps complete your stitch. So you need to keep that in mind as you're increasing. See, I'm increasing to this needle, but we're going over. And it skipped a stitch. We'll just tuck this in here. And go over, increase. You want to make sure when you're at your edges to have a pretty good bit of tension, just to keep those edges nice and tight and good looking. If you do mess up on the edge, I actually put fringe on the edge of mine, so you can cover up a mistake, but it's nicer to keep things clean and concise. actually just launched a website where I'm selling my knitting stuff. So I'm super excited about that. I'm trying to get my stuff up and everything uploaded. And I noticed I only have 2 of these cowls. So I figured I may as well, you know, make some more. I really like this project because it is nice and warm, and it's not too hateful when it comes to how much yarn it uses. So I'm continuing to increase. I always increase until there are 4 pegs left with no yarn, and that is when I change to my circular knitting. And you gotta watch. Sometimes that yarn just does not want to go under the needle. And I do apologize for my brother leaving a bunch of comments on here. Don't know what that's about. So we're going to tuck this under. Put these back on. Accidentally lost them. There we go. Not a big deal. Okay, we're going to go back to our increase. And you'll notice here are my black needles, but I'm going to keep going around until there's only 4 with no yarn on them. Increase here. We're gonna go onto this black needle now. And this will be my last increase on this side. My machine's not very happy. My tension's a little bit too tight with my cake, so I'm going to pull out some yarn. There we go. So now, you know, I would usually increase, but since I'm down to my last 4 needles, I'm just going to make sure I get over this red hump. And we're going to go back this way. And I'm doing this so I am turning my machine the way I usually would in circular knitting as I do my first row that's not plain. So now that I've done all my increases, you see I have a nice triangle here. And I'm taking my yarn out of the feeder, and we're going to act just like we are casting on. So we're going to go behind this needle and front, behind and front, and then back into our feeder. And now I'm going to reset my row counter and press this down, make sure all my stitches pick up. And we're going to go really slow over where I just casted on. Make sure everything goes the way it should. And that was my first row. I've been doing 75 rows for these. Like 75 rows in the circular mode. But I might do a little bit shorter just because that leaves a huge neck. Like, you can pull it clear over your head and hide like a turtle. Oops, I lost the stitch. Pick that up and fix it. There we go. I do really love this Big Twist Classic yarn. It's nice and thick and it has a wonderful texture, but sometimes my Addie doesn't really like it. Like, you have to be careful or your needles will split in between the fibers of the yarn. I don't know why, but my Addie, like, sometimes gets a little temperamental with this. Yeah, we are currently in like a winter emergency advisory. There is so much snow here. So I'm making some gear to keep warm. It is insane how much snow we have. In the United States, I know a lot of places that don't usually get a lot of snow are getting a lot of snow. I saw in Texas, like, they got quite a bit. So you'll see where I have started my circular knitting. It picked up nice. It just looks like regular cast on here. And we are going to continue. Sorry, for some reason I lost connection. My Wi-Fi is really... Alright, get this centered back where I had it. And on we crank. So we're going to keep going. And as you'll notice, the triangle part where we did plain knitting, it's going to seem super duper long. This is normal because it is actually going to hang over like the chest of the person who is wearing it. So we are going to have to fold that up before we have to fold this up just to keep it from dragging. So I'm going to go ahead and fold this out of my way. And it folded itself down. I guess there wasn't quite enough to fold it up yet. Another thing I really like about this project is you don't really need too much crochet or extra stitching. Now there's waste yarn at the end, but it's not really too much of an advanced project. If you haven't noticed, like, I don't really do that much plain knitting. I don't know why. I've never really preferred it. That's not really my forte. But I feel like with this project, it's a nice balance between plain and circular. And there's a big knot. Oh my goodness. Okay. There we go. But I feel like this project is a nice balance. So even someone who doesn't do a lot of plain knitting, it's a good project to practice your techniques on. There we go. So I've done 18 rows in circular so far. Man, my Addie is so fussy today. I really apologize. I'm going pretty slow, but I'd rather go slow and not have a bunch of random drop stitches and crap. Like, it just doesn't look good. You can tell when someone is, rushing through their project just because of the way the finished product looks. And I do apologize if this is buffering. I know at one point I had to reconnect. We do not have very good service where I live, so sometimes it's kind of touch and go. So as I'm continuing, you'll see my triangle part is starting to look more like a triangle just because it can stretch out more. This will be at the bottom of our cowl in the front. And I'm just going to fold this up because when your project drags the ground, it starts to mess up with your tension and it can lead to a lot of unwanted dropped stitches. So you always got to make sure to fold up. I know some people do use weights to kind of help things go the way they should. I don't really find that necessary with the kind of stuff I work on. Let's see. Hey Marianne, thanks for joining the stream. Yeah, this color is one of the Big Twist Classic. I actually rolled it into a cake just because I used most of the skein. I don't know why, but I just love Joann's yarn. I don't know if it's because of the coupons or the shopping, but I love the textures and I love that it's a little bit more affordable. I feel like Hobby Lobby, they do have really nice dye patterns and stuff, but their prices can be a little bit extreme if you don't go on the sale week. Did you see Hobby Lobby's getting rid of their 40% off coupon? I heard they're getting rid of that. So I'm continuing to crank. I have 30 rows done, and my plan is to have 50. I'm testing out to see how the shorter neckline would look. You guys can't see it's off camera, but my cat is currently trying to grab my yarn. So it's kind of messing up my tension a little bit. He's going crazy over here. Every time I knit, it never fails. Hey Pam, thank you so much for the positive comment. I really try to make stuff that's helpful to people of all skill levels. I don't know, I feel like a lot of channels are targeted more towards beginners, which is wonderful. That is how I learned. But I don't know, I try to make stuff that's fun for everybody to make. So I really appreciate any feedback, positive or negative. You know, this is a learning experience for me too. Make sure that goes under. There we go. Oh, here, let me tap the screen, see if that focuses it. What are some of my favorite designs? I don't know. I have certain colors that are my favorite with yarn, but what I found is when I design a new project or a new style headband, I'll get really excited about it at the beginning and I'll make like 10 of them, and then I get really burnt out. So I don't know, I feel like I enjoy anything I make, even if it turns out kind of crappy, because my main part in all of this is I enjoy the process of making things. I enjoy learning. The most recent thing that I really liked making was my heart beanies. I made a bunch of them for Valentine's Day, and I had a craft fair hoping they would sell. I only sold like 2 of them, so that was kind of sad. I'll be blocking it when I have finished. If you're talking about this stream, I'm not going to block the stream. I'm actually going to leave it up on my page. It will take a while to process. It'll take a while for YouTube to process it, for it to be available to view. Well, I'm at 42 rows. I don't know. This doesn't look like too long of a neckline, so I think I'm going to stick with my original 75. I really, like, look at how cool that pattern is. I love this yarn. I think it looks so good. And these Big Twist skeins that I'm using, like, I have made a lot of projects with this skein that I'm working off of right now. I have made a toboggan, I made a headband, I've made baby booties. It's only 420 yards, so I don't know how I'm getting so much. Oh, looky there, I've got a hole. Man, that's okay. I'm just gonna grab my crochet hook and go in this last stitch and just crochet up. Good thing about these holes is they're easy to fix if you notice them early on. So see right here, my machine picked it back up. So since this is going to be on the inside of my project, I actually have a little cheat. I just cut a piece of yarn and I sort of just tie a knot. Because nobody's going to see this on the inside. I just cut that and it's good as new. Yeah, that's another reason why it's so important to make sure it picks up every single stitch, even though it takes longer. It helps the overall construction of your piece. I'm going to fold this back up again. I have a gift card option on my website because, especially around Valentine's Day, a lot of people like to support smaller businesses and stuff. But I've noticed that when people are buying gifts for others, especially like a man buying for a woman, they don't always exactly get what she wants. So I figured having a gift card option, someone could place a custom order with me or give it as a gift, you know. So the big twist, this is an American weight number, let me look. I believe this is a number 4. Oh, it's a number 5. So here's the weight label. It's a little bit heavier than a fingering weight. I'm trying to get those to focus. There we go. It's a bulk. I don't know if that helps you any. I'm sorry. I use most 4 or 5 on my machine. If you'll notice, it's giving me a little bit of fit using this 5. So if you can use a 4 or a fingering weight, your machine will be the happiest with that. I found with a 3 or anything thinner, you can actually run 2 strands through the machine, and it does pretty good. Okay, I'm at my 50th row. Yeah, see, I'm not really digging the length of that. I think I'm going to go to my 75. A lot of, like, my videos and my patterns is trial and error. Like, there's no one exact way to do any project or anything on the Addy, really. There are so many different variations, different stitches, different yarns, different tensions. Like, there's so many variables that you can almost never make the same exact thing twice, unless it's like a beanie or a headband. And if you'll notice, with my left hand, I'm actually grabbing the red ring and kind of pushing it through a little bit. I have found this helps me go a little bit faster without putting too much stress on my handle. I do believe that the way I broke my first handle on my 22 pin was pressing down too hard when I'm cranking, because there's a little black piece that holds this part on, and that snapped. And then like a week later it snapped on my king size too. So I think that was where I went wrong. Oops, there we go. Row 57. Yeah, like I said, I did lose a screw, so the bottom of my machine isn't attached the way it should be. So it is a little more sensitive right now. I ordered a pack of the Addy screws, so hopefully those will come in before too long, and I can get things rolling the way they should be. Right, I'm on my row number 60, so I only have like 15 left. Not bad. We're almost to the end of my cranking. I enjoy making this cowl because I feel like it doesn't take very long. Some of the other cowls have a lot of crochet work or a lot of adding buttons or different stitches, and I feel like doing this triangle style one, it takes me about 45 minutes from start to finish. But this is only my third one, so I'm sure with time I'll get quicker as I'm more comfortable making it and using thinner yarns. But using this bulky weight yarn makes it a lot thicker and warmer. And with this particular yarn, it is super duper soft. That's why I find it really hard to yarn shop online. I love to go into the store and feel all the different yarns and kind of run them through my fingers just to see what is comfortable, because nobody wants a project that's made out of miserable, scratchy yarn. So now I'm pushing down right behind my feeder to kind of make sure all my stitches go the way they should. We do not want any dropped stitches. It's about time to take this bad boy off the loom. Oops, there we go. So here we are, row 75. Now instead of cutting this before I do waste yarn, I'm actually gonna put my whole thing in the middle of the loom. That way I have enough for when I'm crocheting later. And I'm gonna use this red heart yarn for my waste yarn. I have a bunch of it left over from where I was working on a order I got for a blanket, because I always try to buy more than I need, especially for a larger project, just in case something goes wrong, because you want to make sure you have the same dye lot and everything else, just so everything matches. And since this is my cast off, I always do more rows of waste yarn for a cast off just because I want to make sure it doesn't unravel. So I'm probably going to do 2 more rows. That'll put me at 5 rows of waste yarn. Alright, I'm coming to my black pegs here. And we're going to cut. We're going to run this through the loom twice with no yarn in the feeder to take our project off. This is the most satisfying part for me, like when it all comes off. I really enjoy that. I'm going to get my king out of the way. Alright. Now we're going to do a little bit of crochet. Take this back out of the middle. And I'm going to pick up the stitch right before my end and do, I think that's a double crochet stitch. So we're going to do the stitch and go into where I cast it off. Do a stitch, wrap around twice, and I'm going into where it's connected to my waste yarn and put them all over. Oops. The reason why I'm doing a stitch in between is to keep this nice and flexible. If you don't do a stitch in between, sometimes it gets pretty tight to try to put over a person's head, and it's not really flexible. Like you'll notice when you're closing up a headband how the end where you crocheted isn't quite as stretchy as where you didn't crochet. The same thing applies here. And I don't know why, but when I learned how to crochet, I didn't learn right, like the politically correct way, I guess. So I am definitely a person who crochets with my fingers. I always have been, always will be. But, you know. So we're just crocheting and picking up every single stitch along the way. I really like to use bright colored waste yarn because it is so much easier to see your project yarn. That's why it's very important when you're choosing waste yarn to find something that contrasts your colors, because it makes this process so much easier. And my kitty is attacking my yarn. Some things never change. He sure is ornery. So this part we're crocheting right now will probably not be around the person's face. It will actually fold down. Yes, it is the evil cat. He is just evil. I don't even know what to do with him at this point. I don't want to get him declawed because I'm afraid, like, I don't know. I heard they cut off their toes and that it gives them arthritis. I don't want to do that to him. So I'll probably get, like, those soft paw things to put on top of his claws. I don't know how effective they are, but I feel like that's a little bit nicer than just cutting his toes off. Anyway, I'm almost done with my crochet at the end here. And after I complete that, we will take off the waste yarn, add some fringe, and I'll be done. I kind of feel intimidated by my cat just leaving his paw here. I feel like he's gonna attack any moment. And I do apologize for the green bar on the screen. That is where I have my camera propped up and I didn't quite get it out of the shot the right way, so. Right here, you see I just picked up my last stitch. So I'm going to crochet and I'm actually going to attach this right here to my original stitch. I'm going to cut it from my cake. I messed up that too. Oh my goodness. Wrap around my hook and pull through, and this creates a snug little knot. Now to get rid of my waste yarn, we're just going to pull and it'll come off pretty easily. There we go. So you'll see my crochet stitch is nice and flexible. I can stretch this pretty far. Since I went ahead and tied a knot, I am going to try to find my scissors that I always manage to lose. Oh my goodness. This is so embarrassing. I always never fail. Every time I go to work on a project or film a video or whatever, I always lose my scissors, and they're always right in front of me too. Yep, you're right in front of me. Okay, since I tied a knot, I'm going to just cut this end. And now I'm going to lay out my cowl and find where my triangle makes a point. So that would be right here. I'm going to pull it tight and kind of stretch this out a little bit. I'm going to fold over my neck. And now I'm going to cut my yarn and make some fringe to add. My fringe isn't really an exact science. It varies from project to project. But what I do make sure of is that it is consistent within the project. The only thing I measure my fringe for is scarves. So I'm going to cut a pretty good amount here to go on my cowl. Okay, now I like to add my fringe in groups of 2. So I'm going to grab 2 pieces here, line up both ends, fold them in half. I'm going to take my crochet hook and stick it where I want my fringe to be. And pull through, and then we're going to put all 4 ends of the yarn through my loop here. Now I'm going to lay this out flat, move these out of the way, and I am just going to attach them across from each other. That way it is symmetrical. So I'm going to attach one here, pull through, and I'm going to follow the same row of stitches, attach one on the other side. As I continue, I'm just going to fold this out more. Right here is where it changes to circular knitting, so that is where my fringe will stop. Got the 2 pieces here. I have seen some people put fringe all the way up and down the sides, but I enjoy to have it more spaced out because I like the way it looks when you're finished. Again, we're going to make sure they're across from each other. Just going to keep adding fringe to finish off our project. And I need like 4 more pieces, I think. We'll cut it. I'm right beside Evil Cat. He thinks the fringe is for him. So I'm going to put one here. And I'm going to put one here. And that'll be it for this project. I hope you enjoyed watching me make this and that it helped you out. I would love to see your guys' projects and see if any of you have made a cowl like this. I love to see others people's projects. So this is what it looks like laid out in the front. And thank you guys so much for watching. Happy crafting, everyone.